Do you want to get ahead in life? Feel like life's got you down and you should really be coasting by on your husband's accomplishments? Well, how can you? Well, introducing a brand new product you're going to need and love. It's called Hillary Clinton. It lets you feel a sense of massive entitlement you've never felt before. So with just a few applications of Hillary Clinton, you too can be uncharismatic, unlikable, and completely unpalatable. Just go to www.satan.com/Daniel and send the Dark Lord all your principles in exchange for some Saudi money, and you too can be like Hillary Clinton. It works absolute wonders. Call now and we'll throw in a free copy of your next book you're going to write, What Happened? Why Didn't This Product Work For Me? So again, I never advertise a product I don't use myself. I've been using Hillary Clinton for 3.5 months now, and already 2 of my acquaintances have disappeared mysteriously. Snitches. In a world gone mad, only one man, okay, maybe more, had the courage to ramble on incoherently. The show is up and the reviews are in. This is the show that many people have described as good. Uninterrupted. Wednesday nights on Tag TV. We're good? Okay. Welcome, Canada and the Muslim Brotherhood affiliated lawyers who are suing me for defamation sometime in the near future. This is the show you want to watch. And if you're in Western Canada, if you could just put down the torches and pitchforks long enough to watch the show, I'll explain why you need your torches and pitchforks, then you pick them back up and go give her. Have fun. All right, so much to get to today. We're going to break down the conservative race. We have the Tech Frontier Project being screwed over, dicked around, whatever you want to call it. Our fake Indian band, the Wet'suwet'en, the media's darling, shutting down the country for stupid reasons. Just everyone being very silly then. Then we have a new hero in Canada. There's potentially a new casting for a series called Captain Canada on the CBC. This is fake news. And where it's going to be played by Omar Carter. So Omar Carter got a hero's welcome in Dalhousie. I just want to go over my thoughts on that. Now, if you're confused what terrorist is in the news today, it's actually Jaspal Atwal. This is Trudeau's favorite terrorist from the India trip. So we're getting flashbacks of the India trip today as Jaspal Atwal has been arrested for threatening to kill someone else because, you know, terrorist gonna terrorist. Plus, I just want to get into a bit on China, Huawei coming into the thing. Why? Maybe, just maybe, hear me out, crazy idea, floating it out there. Maybe we shouldn't give the Chinese government access to all our intimate personal details. Who knows? I might be crazy, but I have this crazy theory called don't trust the communist Chinese government. Anyways, I'll explain that later. But first, let's start the show by wishing sort of a melancholy happy trails to Christy Blatchford. So today, Canada lost journalist Christy Blatchford. She died of cancer today at 68 years old. You can bring her up. I just want to say, I do hate the mainstream media. There are a lot of really terrible mainstream media journalists, but the state of Canada's journalism is in a much worse place today than it was yesterday, as Christy Blatchford could be described as could not be described as a left-wing radical. And that's very rare in Canada, that you have someone who, you know, was, in my opinion, reasonable. So condolences to the family of Christy Blatchford. Best wishes to you. Okay. Starting off today, we have to go to the absolute shitstorm. Yeah, we're going to just call it a shitstorm. That is the Conservative Party leadership race. Oh my God, is this thing ever terrible to look at? It's like it is like a train wreck to watch. It's like watching your kids get into a car crash in slow motion. It's just that bad. So right now there are 2 front runners in the race to take over from Andrew Scheer as the Conservative Party leader. First up, we have Erin O'Toole. And also we have Peter MacKay. So this is sort of what are we dealing with? Is it O'Toole? Is it MacKay? That's what we're seeing right now. The red Tory, the blue Tory racing. Let's break this down. Okay. Now, first up we have Erin O'Toole. All right, we'll get into him first. He is currently the subject of my ire, and I'm the subject of his ire. Let's just say we're not friends. I don't know why. He's just so good looking. Oh my God, oof. Sexy. Now, ladies, you're just gonna have to calm down after watching just this sex bomb staring at you like a creep. But let's get into what is Erin O'Toole doing. Erin O'Toole is portraying himself as the blue Tory. So blue. This is pretty new for him, but he has a bit of problems. Now, if we all watched last week's episode, we would know that Erin O'Toole has been meeting with Islamic Relief Canada. If you are a fan of the show, you might know Erin O'Toole knows that Islamic Relief Worldwide, their parent company, is considered a terrorist organization by the United Arab Emirates, also Israel. Now, he still meets with them because his campaign chair, who is on his team, Walid Suleiman, I don't know, maybe he advised him to do so. Maybe it has something to do with Walid Suleiman's brother, Hani Suleiman, being on the board of directors of Islamic Relief Canada. Either way, it doesn't look great for him. Let's just say I've said a lot about O'Toole. He's saying the right things. You know, he has Ontario Proud and all the Canada Proud nonsense on his side. So he has the sort of the big tech conservatives. Giants are with him. He has all the money that Walid Suleiman's bringing. But I don't trust that money because where does that money come from? No one really knows. So Erin O'Toole's playing blue conservative. He's like, I'm hard on this. He's taking a stand on the Wet'suwet'en. He's taking a stand on different things. He's going to move the embassy to Jerusalem, but he's affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood. I think he's just pretending to be blue Tory. Now, I've said a lot about Erin O'Toole. There'll be an article out later this week. Feel free to respond, Erin. You know, you've called everything I said lies, but you haven't been able to point to a single lie and then correct it. So just get up there. And as I said before, the O'Toole people are trying to accuse me of being part of some whisper campaign. This isn't a whisper campaign. I will yell as loudly as I want to, and I will continue to do so. Erin O'Toole is dirty. Don't trust the money he's coming from. I don't trust Erin O'Toole, and neither should you. Erin the Tool O'Toole. But we'll leave Erin O'Toole for now. He's pretending to be blue Tory. That's his brand. Now let's bring up the red Tory. Here we have Peter MacKay. Oh my God. Sorry, I'm falling asleep just looking at this pic. Please get the picture of Peter MacKay off before everyone falls asleep. Shivam, down. Good. Okay. So now we're still watching. Okay. I know you had to look at a picture of Peter MacKay, but you know, sniff some smelling salts or whatever. Take a shot of adrenaline. This is the only time I'll actually authorize the use of cocaine. But get yourself back in here because I know Peter MacKay was on the TV, but we're gonna have to talk about him before we all fall asleep. Okay. Peter MacKay, I do not understand. I don't understand what he's doing. The way primaries or leadership races work, right? There's the old adage, you know, you run to the fringes in the primary, then you come to the center in the general election. That's sort of the American thing. The same sort of holds true in Canada. What you're supposed to do is sort of do the Erin O'Toole thing, where you pretend to be more conservative than you actually are, because the people who vote for the next conservative leader are conservatives, and they want to see someone be conservative. So you generally talk to conservatives and you say, I am so conservative, blah, 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 blah. Then you get into the general and you try and go more into the middle to appeal to the moderates. That's standard politics. What Peter MacKay is doing is he's running a conservative leadership race to the left. I don't know why. It's like, why would someone do this? Why would someone inside a conservative leadership race run as a red Tory? It's absolutely ridiculous. The only thing that would like make sense, and it would be so silly, is like if someone were to like be financing two different campaigns and thought that there's only two front runners and decided to run one to the left and one to the right just to hedge his bets. But clearly, that's not the case. Okay. Now, Peter MacKay, what's he doing? You know, he can't decide, you know, if it's the right thing to put the capital in Jerusalem. Right? What other country, it just appeals to Islamists and leftists. You know, what other country in the world is not allowed to pick their own capital? You know, are we debating the fact whether Washington's really the capital of the United States of America or anything else? So that's something that conservatives, you know, don't like. I mean, there's other things. He is the only one who will not comment on the Wet'suwet'en people. He wouldn't comment on the media censorship, that story we did last week. I mean, he's not taking any conservative stances whatsoever. He's just being firmly red, like he's not even trying to hide the fact that he's pretty red in this. It's quite outstanding. I don't know why. Why would someone do this? They would have to be running two different campaigns and play one to the left and one to the right, hoping that no other third party would emerge as a viable candidate. I don't know why anyone would do this. I know why someone would do this. But ignore that. That's all hypothetically. I'm not saying that that's happening. But, okay, so Peter MacKay Sorry, I fell asleep again by just talking about Peter MacKay. But Peter MacKay, he exists. And you know what? What I will say is I don't like the attacks on Peter MacKay's wife. There's so many legitimate ways to knock Peter MacKay. I will defend the sort of, his wife wanted to bring Omar Khadr in, and we'll talk a bit about the Omar Khadr later and sort of my views on this and parse that out. But Peter MacKay's wife was also, she led the charge to shut down the Iranian embassy in Canada. So there are a lot of good with Peter MacKay's wife, a lot of bad. And you know, I don't like, you know, going this route. Listen, I'm going to say a lot of things going down about Peter MacKay and why you shouldn't vote for him, but I will say the using his wife as a means of attacking him, it doesn't hold up, because she has done a lot of good as well. Now, if only there was another person who was actually conservative and somewhat viable. Enter my girl, Leslyn Lewis. So Leslyn Lewis is sort of the dark horse in this race. She has come out of nowhere. She is not a career politician. She is a lawyer by trade and also has a PhD. So she's a Dr. Leslyn Lewis, a doctor of international business and environment. So there's a bit of sort of unfair sort of conspiracy, unfair conspiracy around her, surrounding her connection to Tides Foundation. And you say, oh, maybe I've heard like, oh, she has an environmental international degree. I'm going to parse a lot of this out. And I've heard internally she has some very good reasons for this. I'll sort of give what I was told on this, and trust me, she will have very good answers for a lot of your questions on this when she gets more visible in the campaign, when they actually start talking to her. So I would pay attention to her. Now, Leslyn Lewis, so she started her own business, very successful, conservative, does a lot of great things, but like, you know, high-powered lawyer with a degree in international business and the environment connected. So someone very qualified. Now, so one thing I heard people were saying, oh, because her PhD is in international business and the environment, people said it's like, oh, it's a globalist thing. And here's the difference between globalism and globalization that we really need to parse out when we talk here. Globalization is good, okay? You probably like pizza, but you probably want to pay less than $27 for a slice of pizza. Makes sense. That's brought to you by globalization. The fact that the tomatoes and the cheese and the spices and the wheat that goes into the bread, all of it can be made in different places, but because of comparative advantage and trade and free markets, that all can get to you in bulk places from different things, and all that comes together, lowers the price of pizza. You know, a slice of pizza, if you want to just go buy one, to $5 instead of, you know, $55. Is pizza the food of globalism? No, it's a food of globalization, which pizza isn't Italian because tomatoes are a New World crop they grow in Mexico. Anyway, nerd rant over. This is globalization. Now, Leslyn Lewis did a PhD in international business pertaining to the environment in a globalized world, which makes sense because we can't just pretend that Bangladesh doesn't exist and doesn't affect us. It does. You know, I mean, every country is relative. Like, of course, America is much more important to Canada than Madagascar, where Trudeau was. I'm going to sign a trade deal with Madagascar this week. Oh, really? What do we need from Madagascar? But because of international trade and free markets and comparative advantage, you actually, if you do trade with Madagascar, it is good for everyone, right? If they specialize in something, you actually can get something out of it. I mean, it's not worth probably the money he went to go on his little vanity trip, but still. Globalization is a good thing. Now, she's been tweeting out very, very hard against globalism and been attacked by Warren Kinsella for doing so. So I suggest you go to her Twitter because she's been very, very, very good attacking globalism. Now, globalism is a political theory. It's sort of a conglomeration of the left. If you want to call it internationalism, they're the two same things. Globalism is a terrible concept. Globalism is the thought that laws and regulations can be imposed upon a country outside of its electorate. So essentially laws being put on you from a place that you don't have, like taxation without representation, essentially, is what we're talking about here, right? So if the UN makes laws, and she's come out against the UN Compact on Migration, which is idiotic, and that's good. She's come out against the UN a lot of different things. So she's coming out pretty good against sort of things that matter a lot to conservatives. Now, I'm going to recommend her. I recommend you follow her on Twitter. You follow her on her Facebook isn't that active, but I just recommend you follow her on Twitter. If Leslyn Lewis is watching this, take everything you post to Twitter and put it on all your other social media sites. It will help you. Call me. Okay. Now, the connections that she has to the Tides Foundation, I've heard a very good answer from her people on this. So Leslyn Lewis was a conservative woman. Everyone knew she was conservative. She wasn't involved in the party. Basically, she's a rich lawyer lady. And at an event, she just threw out $1,500 to, I believe, like it was Trillium, or a conservative thing, and they said, basically, because she threw out a lot of money, they said, do you want to be on the board of this? So she gets on the board of Trillium. Doug Ford puts her on the board here as essentially because it was full of lefties. So he put a conservative on the board just to sort of stop any lefty nonsense from going through. She was never actually involved in this. And it's like an organization where she sat as a board member for a year as just a veto to leftist nonsense, had some affiliation to the Tides Foundation. But I believe that if she were actually to be in office, she would be very, very anti-George Soros. She's been made aware of all these connections, what the Tides Foundation is, how Soros funds things, and she's been taking actual concrete action against them. It's not sort of the nebulous conservative sounding rhetoric that O'Toole puts out, or the nothing that McKay says, or Marie Glado, the other woman, who it's like the most vanilla conservative tweets I've ever seen. I'm not even going to put her on this video because it's so vanilla. There's only, I mean, I already showed you Peter McKay, and that almost made us all fall asleep. I'm not putting her up. So I'm endorsing her for now. Now, she could very well screw up. She could very well screw up, and then we can find out other things. But honestly, she's not connected to the Muslim Brotherhood. And right now, that's the #1 qualification for Conservative Party leader in my books. And if she actually calls out O'Toole for being connected to Islamic Relief, then we're throwing a party and you're all invited. So she has my endorsement for now as being the only one who will actually attack core issues. She will attack globalism. Will she attack Islamism? Let's see. Let's see. If she attacks globalism and Islamism, then listen, we got to do it. Because I got a lot of flack in the last election from some crazy people. I got flack from the CPC and the PPC supporters because I didn't join the PPC, although I acknowledge that their platform had some good things. And I criticized the CPC. Now, my criticism of Andrew Scheer's campaign was, I don't think he's running a good campaign. Like, if you keep talking like this, you're not going to win. And I was right. He didn't run a good campaign, and he lost. He even came out after and said, yeah, I was listening too much to my advisors and focus groups, and I have been saying that, if you watch the show, the entire time. Andrew Scheer came out about a month ago and agreed with what my analysis was. Some crazy people were saying, you're trying to destroy this Conservative Party. No, no, no. I didn't like Andrew Scheer's campaign. I thought he was running a losing campaign. I still voted for it because it would be better than Justin Trudeau. I will not vote for Erin O'Toole or Peter McKay, because if Erin O'Toole or Peter McKay get in as Prime Minister of Canada, the Conservative Party's dead. It's done. There's no coming back from that. There's no coming back. There's no coming back. We might as well just, we might as well just open up an office of Islamic Relief inside Parliament if that happens. Change the flag too, to just Hamas. Okay. So that's my preliminary breakdown of where we stand in the Conservative leadership race. Now, moving on to Western Canada. Again, Western Canada, if you could just put down the torches and pitchforks just for the next 10 minutes while I explain why you have your torches and pitchforks to the rest of the country, then you can go and try and destroy the federal government again. I wish you all the best. But it's pretty fair to say that, one, the West is either under attack from the federal government, two, the federal government hates Western Canada, or maybe Justin Trudeau is pro-Wexit. Maybe all three of these things are true. I floated the idea that, maybe Justin Trudeau is pro-Wexit earlier, and it really looks like he is. Because there is really no one trying harder to build the Wexit movement, and I know if people in the Wexit pages, whatever, see this, I will stand by the space. I know you might be trying really hard, you might be raising funds. There is no one trying harder right now for the Wexit Party than Justin Trudeau. Like, you might as well make him the leader of the Wexit Party because he's driving the whole thing. Now, Alberta likes having an economy. Most Canadians like Alberta having an economy because Alberta's economy has propped up the Canadian economy for years. Remember that global recession in 2008 when we were the strongest middle class in all of world history? A lot of that was thanks to our homies in Alberta, and a lot of the last several decades, we could say, thanks to our homies in Alberta. Especially you guys in Quebec. Thank Alberta now. So Quebec, hey, come back here. Pamplemousse, Bibliotech, sit down, and thank Alberta, and Saskatchewan, and the rest of the West. Basically everywhere else except the big cities, west of Ontario, okay? Thank you. The federal government has decided to, let's kill Western Canada. That ought to be fun. What if we kill all the jobs there? Will they still have an economy with no jobs? That's a very interesting question to ask. The answer is no, and that's how you get them leaving the country. So we're talking about tech and the Tech Frontier project. So this project has been approved by both provincial and federal regulators, okay? They have gone through 10 years of regulatory process to get approved. They have now been approved provincially, they have been approved federally, and everything. All they need now is the final rubber stamp from the federal government, then construction builds. And this is a billion-dollar project with billions of dollars and thousands of jobs, and basically Alberta on the line. And what's the federal government doing? Yeah, they just banded about, maybe we'll kill the project. Well, we got to get to our sustainable development goals of 2050 having no carbon energy whatsoever. We're going to have no carbon. Yeah, no carbon-based life forms by 2050. What a genius plan. Or we'll be carbon neutral. This development. Come on, guys. Come on. All you have to do is approve it under the table and no one would have cared. You control the media. Just tell them not to say anything. They would have said nothing. Just do it. But instead they're like, do we want the... maybe Justin Trudeau is really, really, really very, very, very pro-Western. And he's just pretending to hate the West because he knows that a federal government in the future might hate the West as much as he appears to, so he's just going to push them out of Canada to save them for now. Is this the conspiracy theory I'm laundering now? Maybe. Okay, so Teck has done 10 years and invested millions of dollars, has everything to go, and then the federal government kills it. So I'll just talk about the externalities outside the West for right now. You cannot do this as a country. This makes us look like a banana republic. Okay, if we kill this, every other investor in our country will look at Canada and go, if I invest a lot of money and time in this country, it's supposed to be a first world country, but if any point the federal government can just shut down projects like it's Laos or whatever, or some other communist nation, why would I invest here? I'm just going to go to America, where Trump's talking about deregulating. Why would I ever put my money in Canada when America is right there? Why would I do that? I have to be crazy. That's what business people are thinking. So there's externalities. That's Justin, if you're listening, all right, I know you're in the Caribbean, you're probably smoking weed and playing the bongos, having a great time. But, either Gerald or Katie, get Justin Trudeau in the room, put him in front of the computer right now. If you do this, and business people stop to invest in Canada, this will hurt the places in Canada you like Quebec. Quebec is still part of Canada. If you hurt Canadian business confidence nationally, that means more than Alberta and Saskatchewan. That means Ontario and Quebec and Eastern Canada. Also Vancouver, where you go surfing. They're also part of Canada. So when you undermine the entire country, that doesn't just hurt Alberta, but also Frenchistan and Hippieville. Cool? Sorry everyone who had to listen to basic politics 101, but the Prime Minister was here, so we had to talk a lot slower. Okay. Back to Alberta. Sorry, guys, for the state of the country right now. We actually have MPs talking about Wexit right now with this. Fort McMurray's MP, David Yerdega, basically did an interview today saying, if this project gets killed, expect the Wexit movement to rise. And Wexit is going to become a political party that's not even the Conservative Party. So here you have Conservative Party MPs hedging their bets on Wexit because Justin Trudeau is so effing crazy. They banded out a thought of a bailout. Now, good on Jason Nixon, Alberta Environment and Parks Minister. He said we're not taking a bailout, right? He's not going to just, which is smart of him to sort of play hardball, because the Liberals want to be able to kill the project and say they gave a bailout, to say, hey, we're investing in Alberta by actually killing Alberta. But it's good of the provincial government to sort of deny them the chance to do that. But here you have actual federal MPs who might have to compete with Wexit Party, hedging their bets on the Wexit movement in case Justin Trudeau keeps being a dum-dum. Can we get ourselves a country, please? Can we get the country together? Can anyone else be leader except Justin Trudeau, Peter MacKay, Aaron O'Toole, anyone else in the Liberal Party, Jagmeet Singh, Who have I missed? Yeah, if just someone who isn't currently trying to lead the country can lead the country. Can you lead the country? You're watching this. I just explained the whole Canada is more than Alberta thing to you. You're now qualified. Congratulations. Tim or Barbara, Diane, one of you, just run. I'll vote. I'll vote. You know, everyone, for whoever comments on this video next, whoever has the next comment on this video should be Prime Minister of Canada. That's the rule. Let's all vote them. Next Prime Minister, that person. Okay. Moving on. So we have a country that's barely functioning as is, and you know what? Let's try and shut down this country. Enter the media's favorite darlings, our fake First Nations, the Wet'suwet'en. So here's just a standard Wet'suwet'en thing of just blocking a random railway. That's how you endear yourselves to the people. And I chose this picture because they even have the flag upside down, and they want consultation and consent. We need consent, 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 consent. Are we going to talk about the fact that all the elected chiefs and band councils along the LNG pipeline route, part of the Wet'suwet'en band, have approved the pipeline? Are we just going to mention that? I'm going to mention that. I'm mentioning it. Throwing it out there. It's already been approved by the First Nations. It's already been approved by the Wet'suwet'en. This Wet'suwet'en, okay, here what we have to understand. This is a society of people blocking the pipelines, and what the official thing is, you want bands and elected chiefs. Very simple to understand, okay? Within First Nations, they have elected chiefs. Now, there are hereditary chiefs, but this means nothing. This means, hey, my father was a chief, or in a lot of the Wet'suwet'en thing, it's like, my great-great-grandmother was once a chief, right? So now I'm the chief, right? This is like a monarchy. This is why if Prince William or Meghan Markle come in and say, I want you to do this, you say, shut up, you're not the queen. Or the queens are stupid, right? Shut your face, right? But basically the media is propping up hereditary chiefs, which means your like grandfather was once a chief. It means nothing about you. Now, the Wet'suwet'en is a society being funded by the Tides Foundation, getting foreign funded. They're basically a corporation. But societies can admit anyone into them. A band cannot, right? A band is actually the First Nation. So the Wet'suwet'en Band Council and the elected chiefs, which have, according to treaty rights, if we're going to talk about, they need to respect treaty rights. Well, in the treaty rights, right, we have to respect elected chiefs and the Band Council. We don't have to respect random societies. Because you can make a Wet'suwet'en 2.0 bigger and badder society, then you can put me in there. Does that make me an indigenous person? I don't think so. Okay, here's a better thing. Now, some of these people protesting are indigenous in the Wet'suwet'en society, but a lot of them are not from the area that the pipelines have been approved. They've been from Vancouver or Montreal or Ontario and being brought in because, again, they're a society, and we can come in, and they're getting foreign funding to do this because it's an international environmentalist eco-colonial project, this whole fake nation Wet'suwet'en people. You remember Jordan Peterson. He wrote a book called 12 Rules for Life. That was a bestseller, international bestseller. Did they put it under Canadian authors or Indigenous authors? Right? Is Jordan Peterson an Indigenous author? You would probably say, no, he's not Indigenous, and he's never claimed to be Indigenous. But he was elected into as an honorary member of a society because he had a very close relationship with the artist, whoever, who made all his things. And because he was friends with a certain society, they made him an honorary member of a society. That doesn't make him Indigenous, right? If he was part of a band, which he can't be because that's actually the First Nations, he would be First Nations, right? But this Wet'suwet'en are Indigenous people. It's the same as saying Jordan Peterson is Indigenous. And no one ever claimed he was. He never claimed it was. It was silly. But when it serves the media's purpose, all of a sudden, we have an indigenous group because they parrot the left-wing environmentalist talking points the left wants them to parrot. Comme ci, comme ça? Okay. So we have them blocking down railroads all over Ontario, delaying people in Belleville from getting to work on time. Oh, you really did it. Just acting like standard entitled leftist protesters. This is a great example of a mainstream media created story, right? Because these Wet'suwet'en weren't real Indigenous people. All the elected chiefs and band councils had approved the LNG pipeline, the Coastal GasLink pipeline, along the route. But you had a couple of white people and some Indigenous people blocking it illegally, setting up camp there. And then finally, the RCMP, because they had an order to legally, right, when you're breaking the law and impeding people and putting illegal blockades up, someone has to take down that blockade, you get arrested. It's not like people being thrown into a Siberian prison and a gulag and like tortured and never seen again. They were just being arrested and physically removed from doing something illegal, because this is a country of laws, or used to be, right? Good, right? Then the media started to misplay the story, selectively tell the story in arresting indigenous people. How could they not remove protesters? So just because it was covered so poorly, right, then you have all these, leftists inside major cities. This is why all the major protests are inside like Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, is because it's not indigenous people. There's like 4 indigenous people, and then it's like 50 white people get up and they like block Caroline Bennett's office or whatever, right? Because that's the proof. It's not the rural people doing this. It's a bunch of whiteys from the city, urban elites, pretending to do something. And this is, again, I'm going to rethrow the term eco-colonialism. It appeared in a TNT article earlier today. I thought it's a great term. Because this is what the left does. If you're a minority, you are very special as long as you serve the narrative. So because the real Wet'suwet'en people, the bands and the chiefs, they don't serve the purpose because they want the pipeline. And most indigenous people want jobs. One of the biggest secrets the left will keep to you about the indigenous people, one of the biggest secrets that the left will not tell you, is that they are people, just like you and me. And they want jobs. They would like prosperity. A lot of them have seen what happens when these environmentalists infiltrate one of these bands of societies and get all these projects killed, and then they end up with absolute destitute poverty, addiction, and nonsense going on the reserves. Because there's no jobs there, right? Creates poverty. Poverty creates all these problems. They don't want that. They want jobs. Destroys poverty. Gets rid of all these problems. They understand that. They're people. A lot of the indigenous people are pro-pipeline here. We don't hear that, right? The chief of the Fort McKay, Jim Boucher, he talked about the eco-colonialism as well. He talked about 1982 when the anti-fur thing co-opted the indigenous movement. And then once they started to speak out and say, hey, wait, we're going to lose jobs and there's some indigenous fur rights here, the left ignored them and then destroyed their industries and was in and out, right? Eco-colonialism, right? These environmentalists who don't really care about the environment, just want to tell their friends they went to a protest. I saw Greta Thunberg or whatever, right? They have no problems destroying an indigenous community. Who cares? You go back to Toronto or Montreal. They deal with the addiction, poverty, and homelessness. So, again, we live in a country in an age where cultural appropriation is very evil, right? You can't, listen, we either have to bomb Mexico or Japan. Someone made a sushi burrito. We're not sure whose fault it is, but either Mexico or Japan has to pay. Or maybe both of them. Who knows, right? Cultural appropriation. But when a bunch of white people pretend to be indigenous for the purposes of a radical left-wing movement, well, then that's okay. That's okay. Oh. You know what? You know what will lower my blood pressure? Omar Carter! Oh my God, why is Omar Carter back in the news? Why do we have to talk about Omar Carter? Can't he just go live with his $10.5 million, just laugh about all the terrorism he did? No, but now we have to turn him into a goddamn hero. And this sickens me. It's shown the absolute moral depravity of our society, the glorification of Omar Carter. And I'm just going to explain why he does not deserve it and why I was sort of right about this event. Now, first things first. I don't really care that Ezra Levant saw him on an airplane. Oh, Omar Carter's on the airplane. We all knew it. That's not his problem, right? If Omar Carter still has terrorist ideology, is still a radical Islamist, which he probably is, then he probably knows that he is a much better asset to not blow up a plane, but going on this fake redemption tour to spout his ideology. Like, he's much more valuable to the cause alive. Like, if he wants to destroy the West, hijacking an airplane is not the best way to do it. Just being himself, doing what he's doing right now, it's much more dangerous than hijacking and blowing up an airplane. So, listen, I don't care about Omar Carter on airplanes, and you can even sell me on, I was 100% against it. I think it sends a very bad message. But I can understand if we were the country that, if it had to go through the courts and said, listen, under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, we're a country of laws, he has to come back here and we owe him $10.5 million because of what he went through at Guantanamo Bay. Okay, I can get over that. I disagree, but I can get over that. I can understand that argument. Okay, now we also have to talk about the fact that Omar Khadr, the torture that he experienced was sleep deprivation, and they moved him rooms. It's not like he was waterboarded. He didn't have any of his fingernails torn out. He wasn't electrocuted in his testicles, okay? Sleep deprivation, and they moved him around a lot, okay? Now, he went to Halifax, Dalhousie to give a talk about what it's like being a child soldier. He receives a standing ovation. He was called a great man doing great things for humanity, but he didn't answer or was asked any hard questions because you had to submit questions to an app and then they would filter them down. So he was not asked about his family. He was not asked about him on camera building IEDs and smiling. He was not asked about Christopher Spears. He was not asked about the payment. The first question they asked him was, how is he dealing with the cold up in Edmonton? So that kind of shows you what this event was. Okay, let's kind of, okay, with all the facts on the table, let's now unload on the country. Trudeau land. You can't have it both ways here, and this is what the left wants to do in Omar Khadr a lot. So, if you want to say that, hey, we're a country, we're with the rule of laws, and he gets $10.5 million, then in order to be morally sane, then he gets $10.5 million. Okay, he did it, we did something, he gets $10.5 million, end of story, right? He doesn't get extra, right? Then there's this thing where you have to now turn him into a hero. So, the argument with Omar Khadr, now remember, he was family friends with the bin Ladens. Osama bin Laden was at his sister Zainab's second wedding. So was his number two, Zahawi. So his family, his father, was a major player in Al-Qaeda, one of the founders of Al-Qaeda, one of the chief financiers of Al-Qaeda. Okay. We're trying to make the argument, the left is trying to make the argument that Omar Khadr is a child soldier. Okay. All right, now he was 15. He wasn't like 10. I was 10 when the planes hit the towers, and I knew that was a bad thing. I knew that murdering thousands of people was wrong. Omar Khadr saw the planes hit the towers. His family was like, let's do it. Off to Pakistan and Afghanistan. Time to join up. This is what we're doing. He went there. Okay? So as a 15-year-old, almost 16, he was almost 16, basically as a 16-year-old, he's building IEDs, he's laughing, he's planting IEDs, and he's killing American soldiers. He's part of the Taliban, part of Al-Qaeda. Now, there's a huge difference between child soldiers who are like 8 in Africa, they see horrible things, their families killed, they're hopped up on drugs, they're given an AK-47, and by the age of 10, they've killed 35 people. Okay, I can get that. That's a child soldier, maximum sympathy. We should do whatever we can to remediate those people, give them super patience, okay? Omar Khadr is not really that. But technically, he barely fits the threshold of child soldier. Okay. Let's go with the fact that Omar Khadr is a child soldier, and therefore deserves our sympathy. All right, let's play this game. Let's play this game. This is the game that Dalhousie was playing. Omar Khadr was a child soldier. He deserves our sympathy. Let's just take this as the truth. Okay, fine. Someone has to answer the question, though. Omar Khadr. Who made Omar Khadr a child soldier? Right? So if Omar Khadr is a child soldier deserving of our sympathy, the answer to this has to be his family. Right? And how do they make him a child soldier? The answer is, what does Al-Qaeda believe? What does the Taliban believe? Radical Islam. Okay. So if Omar Khadr is a child soldier that deserves our sympathy, I can play this game. I will take this. But that is only predicated on the fact that we take this logic all the way, which we did not do. That means the Khadr family are the villains. That means Radical Islam is the villain. Neither of these two became the villain in his speech. No one asked him about his family. In this last little CBC hurrah, he talked about how he still wanted to see his family, and we had to pretend he was the victim because he wasn't allowed to see his family. I'm sorry, if he's a child soldier, the family is evil. Right? You can't have it both ways like what we want to do. Right? And if the family is evil, and if they brainwash Omar Khadr into doing so, how do they do it? The answer is Radical Islam. Right? Then we have to talk about the Khadr family friends with the bin Ladens, and Radical Islam. Yet we had none of those. Yet Omar Khadr is allowed to go to these private events, fly first class, be given a standing ovation by useless nobodies who want. I know why they're giving a standing ovation. I get it. It's sort of they're patting themselves on the back. It's this misappropriation of tolerance as a virtue, right? It's sort of the left-wing idea these days that the more intolerable a thing you can tolerate, the better the person you are, right? There's no real morality to it. I think it's just a gross manifestation of that. This is the Omar Khadr thing. But now, you can't have him flying around and saying, oh, I'm the victim, but my family's also the victim, and there's nothing wrong with Islam. But we're letting him play this. We're just letting him say bullshit, and then a bunch of useless liberal aunties get up and give him a standing ovation to make themselves feel better. And it's depraved. It is absolute moral depravity, and I will not stand for it. Pen drop. Drives me fucking crazy. Drives me absolutely crazy. Okay. Please like the video, share the page, do all that stuff. It really helps us go along. If you want the video to be seen, you got to share it. And I just got to like get this image of Omar Khadr out of my head before we start the next story about a goddamn terrorist in Canada. So please like, share the video, blah, blah, blah. Okay. You guys remember Justin Trudeau's good friend from our India trip, Jaspal Atwal? Well, he's back in the news as he's been arrested for threatening to kill someone else. Let's bring him up, just in case you forget. There he is, Jasper Atwal. There he is with Sophie Trudeau in India. There he is another time taking a picture with Justin Trudeau. He is a big Liberal supporter and a terrorist. Okay, Jasper Atwal, let's go back to his record in 1986. When hip-hop was just getting hippity and hoppity. Jasper Atwal was out there trying to assassinate Indian cabinet ministers. Malik Singh Sidhu. He tried to kill him. The Canadian judge ruled this was terrorism. He was also part of a group called the International Sikh Youth Federation. The Canadian government, Health and Public Safety, calls this a terrorist organization. Yes! However, Jaspal Atwal got a personal invitation to go to India with the Prime Minister of People Kind and got invited to galas there. Now, obviously, India was mad. Now, here's India's perspective for a second. If you can just, think like an Indian here. Here is a terrorist who tried to assassinate one of your cabinet ministers being invited to an official trip to your country by Prime Minister Diversity McBlackface. Jai ho. So other than him dancing around like an idiot for an entire week, embarrassing the hell out of our country, not only did he do that, but he brought a terrorist along with him. Who does India love more than Khalistani separatists? Come on. Now, Jaspar Atwal was arrested today because he threatened someone called Anisha Khan, who was a part of television, radio, whatever, and she was with a bunch of friends. He called and threatened to finish them off. Then he went down to the parking garage and started taking pictures of their cars, and he was arrested. So it looks like he was not even reformed. It looks like if they actually... Who was his friend? Like, in order to get invited to an international trip by a world leader, you have to be friends with someone within the party. Now, he had a history of terrorism. He was a member of a terrorist organization. And it looks like he wasn't that reformed. Looks like he was still pretty big on the, doing all that in terrorism things, like threatening to kill people. Canada. I mean, it's so obvious, but this is now the news, and we have to cover the news because I do news. Like, I'm not even a journalist. I play one on TV, but like, come on. How stupid can this all be? I mean, literally. Why do we have world leaders inviting terrorists on play dates? Literally. Justin Trudeau's on a play date in India. He's like, I'm going here. Who should I invite? I don't know. How about the terrorist who tried to assassinate an Indian cabinet minister that one time? Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. What could go wrong? You know what? Our government says he's a terrorist, and their government says he's a terrorist. What could possibly go wrong? And then remember when Gerald Butts tried to blame it on the Indian government as their conspiracy? Oh my God. India's kind of important in the world. Like, there's countries that are not very important, like, sorry, Madagascar, nothing against you. It's just no one's really there, and there's not the economy's like $5. Okay. India has over 1 billion people. If you went to the Justin Trudeau School of Math, let me save you some time, that's a lot of people. Now, when you undermine your relationship with India, that can hurt your country, because India, you want free trade agreements with. You want agreements because India has lots of people and lots of money. India can help Canada. Canada can help India. You could have done a trade deal. They did one in one day where, like, basically we gave them $750 million and they gave us $250 million, and we got fleeced by $500 million in one day. You know, good on Narendra Modi for taking advantage of this idiot. But come on, why does this idiot have to lead the country? Now, it is not a stretch to say that Indian security forces and security people do not trust this current Canadian administration. In fact, they think it's a joke, and a dangerous joke at that. Actually, you know, they probably don't think we're a joke. I think we're a joke. They think we're a problem. This is bad because they have billions of people and billions of dollars. And somehow we're moving closer to Pakistan, which has less money, less people, more terrorism, more instability. Why? Why? It's like he's purposely trying to undermine this country. All right. Moving on. Our next story is China. Now, I know the most about China. No one knows more about China than me. Okay, we do great deals. China is a bit of a problem. They present a massive security threat because, well, they're kind of an evil communist dictatorship. So, Canada's been doing deals with Huawei. Huawei is clearly an extension of the Chinese government, right? We arrested Meng Wanzhou on sanctions busting in Iran. She was highly connected to the Chinese government because her father runs Huawei. So the Chinese government kidnapped 2 Canadians in response. We saw this story play out before. I've talked about it a lot. Now, what does the Canadian military say about Huawei? The Canadian military says they want Ottawa to ban Huawei from our 5G network. Yes, it's almost like giving a front for the Chinese government access to all our data is a bad thing. I don't know why. Well, it's like they could just take all of our data and use it in nefarious ways, right? They have a history of threatening Chinese foreign nationals, right? I was about to say the Rohingya. The Uyghur, right? The Muslims there, right? Now, I'm a big fan of not putting people in concentration camps. Call me old-fashioned, but it's just one of the things I believe. China, big fans of the Muslims in concentration camp bit. Okay, and one of the things is they are threatening foreign Uyghurs to either give blood or DNA, or they're basically holding their family hostage, forcing them to come back to China so they can throw them in concentration camps. What could possibly go wrong giving China access to a massive database of all these people? Do you think they could use it in any sort of harmful way? Could they maybe monitor the foreign nationals abroad and see if they're on their best behavior and then use it to inflict a negative social credit score on them or their relatives? Could they do this? Could they, steal all our industry secrets? That might be a thing. China's whole economy. This is like, I love the left. The environment. I love the environmental movement. Don't get me wrong. I love it because it just makes me laugh a lot of the time, right? I mean, Catherine McKenna was the leader of it for 4 years, so come on, we can't take it seriously. But one of my favorite left-wing rhetoric things to ever be said, and I truly, my heart grows whenever I hear it, is when people would say things like, well, China has more green technology than America. Therefore, China's good because they care about climate change. I'm sorry. Yes, China cares about climate change. Okay, most pollution and plastic and carbon emissions in the world. Okay. No. They care about climate change because they have more green technology. Who's patented more green technology than China? Do you want to know how China gets all of that green technology? They steal all of it. You idiots! That's what they do. That's what half the Chinese economy is. People patent things and then China just steals it. Said, no, this is mine now. It's China. That's what they do. So anytime someone in America, Canada, or Europe develops like a windmill or a solar panel, the Chinese just steal that technology and say it's theirs. And they're like, no, yours was called Blue Energy Inc. Ours is Green Energy Inc. Totally different thing. No. And no one can do anything because they're effing China. What could possibly go wrong giving a government with a history of stealing all our industry secrets and using personal data to harass and abuse foreign nationals and their own citizens, what could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? And China's totally trusted. Yeah, no, Huawei could be trusted. Pull up the next article we're just going to talk about. Yes, nothing new. U.S. officials say Huawei can covertly access telecom networks. Yes, it looks like Huawei can just hack into us anyway. If we give, what could go wrong giving these people easier access to our networks? I don't know. What could possibly go wrong? And just take the China aspect out of side of it. Take the fact that Justin Trudeau loves China for some reason. This is the idiot who said he admires their basic dictatorship. So at least he understands it's a dictatorship. What could go wrong? Let's say nothing. Let's say the Chinese government is the most misunderstood kid on the playground. Let's just say they're just really awkward. We don't really get them. You see them arresting and detaining people and, doing all. They're just trying to make friends. They just have poor social skills. Oopsie doodles, it's the Chinese government. Okay, let's take that argument that I think Justin Trudeau is trying to make, or not even trying to make. Let's just take that as absolute fact. Okay. The fact that our neighbors don't trust them and won't trust us if we let them in, that should scare you. Because if the United States says, no, we're not doing business with Huawei, and then we do business with Huawei and we put them on our networks, well, then guess who doesn't trust our networks? America. Guess who has over $1 billion of trade flowing between their borders every day? Canada and America. Like, are we going to trust, like, this? Here, let's bring up this picture. This isn't, I'm not sure if this is verified. This has been going around the internet, but we've all seen videos of the Chinese people snatching, the Chinese government snatching people out of buildings and just throwing them away. Like, do we actually believe their numbers on the coronavirus? Let's have the biomap. Like, here is a map of where it's like sulfur dioxide burning. And this is like associated with when you burn organic materials, like human bodies. Like, how many human bodies are being burned in Wuhan right now? We have no idea. And we're taking the Chinese government's data as fact? Are we fucking crazy? Like, sometimes, are we all fucking stupid and crazy? Am I living in some bizarre world? Like, does no one see what I see? Is no one like, maybe we shouldn't give an evil communist dictatorship access to all our information. Maybe. I'm also a big fan of not giving armed burglars your alarm code and house keys. Maybe. What could go wrong? You know what? Maybe you're going away for the weekend and you say, hi, 1-800-BURGLARS-ARE-US. Here's our house key and the alarm code. We're going to be away from this hour to this hour. Please make sure no one robs us. Thanks. This is Canada and Huawei. All right, let's finish quickly with my favorite thing in the world, the United Nations. We have time to, I didn't think we'd have time to talk about this, but we're going to talk about how much I hate Justin Trudeau and the United Nations. Why do we need a UN Security Council seat? Why? All these other countries, Ireland and Norway, started campaigning before us. Now we're blowing all our money in Africa. He's literally on vacation in Africa and the Caribbean trying to get to vote for a UN Security Council seat. And what drives me up the fucking wall is no one on the pro-Trudeau media can even make the argument on why we need it. Trudeau's actual answer, not lying, not paraphrasing at all. The reason why we need a UN Security Council seat is because it will up our game. Yes, this is now the leader of a country saying it will up our game. He sounds like a stoned 26-year-old, like talking about their DJing business. If we bring this UN Security Council seat into the club and then spin some dope records, it will up our game. This man leads my country. Captain Diversity McBlackface. Ups our game. One, the UN is useless. What does it matter being on the Security Council seat? The UN has no power. It has no power. None. The only thing it does is it tries to undermine Israel. It is just really more annoying and anti-Semitic than it really does anything. Where we just found out the UN had blacklisted 10 different companies inside Israel because of Palestinians. And they were employing Palestinians. All these companies employed Palestinians. All the UN does is try to screw over Israel for the sake of radical Islam and ends up screwing over Palestinians instead. That's all the UN really does. Okay, so it's just this anti-Semitic globalist organization of dictators and pedophiles enabling terrorists. or dictators and terrorists enabling pedophiles, or pedophiles and terrorists enabling dictators. I'm not sure. Maybe all three. Why do we need this UN Security Council seat? To up our game? And I just want to see one media member actually make the argument of, here's what we can get from a UN Security Council seat. And the reason they don't have anyone on the media saying the propaganda lines on why a Security Council seat will benefit us is because they can't even make up a reason, because it is so useless. Just throwing money around Africa, like, here's $10 million for gender equality in Africa. Yeah, that's what Africa's talking about right now. We need more gender equality. Let's, how about, you know what, I'll up it. Africa, I offer you $11 million for female circumcision competitions. You know what? We're going to turn female circumcision, female genital mutilation, we're turning that into a sport. I'm giving you $11 million so we can televise it, put it on TV, and see which country mutilates the most women in the best way. $11 million. Put me on the UN Security Council seat. Fuck Trudeau. My Security Council seat. I get to sit there. King of the castle on this thing. I feel like that one's going to get me in trouble sometime down the road. Of all the things I've said, I'll say something crazier next week. Don't worry. I will say something crazier next week. Okay. So I guess that wraps up our show. As usual, we should nuke the UN. Tune in tomorrow, 9 p.m. We are talking to Raheel Raza on No Politics, No Religion. You might know her, the noted feminist, human rights activist. She did the Honor Diaries. Basically, honor killings, female genital mutilation, hijabs, no hijabs. You want it, she's got it. We'll talk about that. So 9 p.m. tomorrow here. Every Wednesday night, 6 p.m. here. Check out the National Telegraph, because I help run that. In 2 days from now, Aaron O'Toole will be taken down. Also, there probably will be no episodes on the CBC for this next week, as I will be out of the country doing stuff. It will just be too hard to watch the CBC. Videos will still be coming out. I'll try and get some of this clipped out, but don't expect anything on the CBC this week. They have a week off. And honestly, this week's CBC was so bad that I do need a bit of a detox from it before my brains explode. So tomorrow, the episode will still be going on. Go to the National Telegraph if you want to find the latest on Aaron O'Toole, the Toole O'Toole. And I will see you every Wednesday night right here on TAC TV.
In a world gone mad, only one man, okay, maybe more, had the courage to ramble on incoherently. The show is up and the reviews are in. This is the show that many people have described as good. Uninterrupted. Wednesday nights on TAG TV.
We're good? Okay.